I hope everyone is happy to see me today. Can you see my screen? If you can see my screen, let me just get a wave or a yes in the chat. Good. Thanks for the thumbs up. Okay, so today on human resource management, week 3, let's briefly take a recap of what we discussed last week class so that we can understand how we've transitioned into the subject line for today, right? So last week we focused on core functions of human resource management, especially how organizations bring people in, how they manage personnel, and how their performance are also gauged, right? We started with recruitment, which is the process of attracting the right candidates for a job. We also explained that recruitment is not just about filing a position, but about finding the right fit for an organization, depending on the role that is vacant, right? We also moved to selection, where we discussed how organizations choose the best candidates from a pool of applicants, right? Using using methods like interviews, tests, and background checks, right? Are we in on this conversation?
Yes, ma'am.
Good.
Yes, ma'am.
Then we also talked about training and development, where we discussed where employees are equipped with the right skills and knowledge that they need to perform their jobs effectively and grow in their careers, right? Another key area that we discussed was performance management, which involves setting goals, monitoring employee performance, and providing feedback to improve productivity. So we emphasize that all these functions are connected, from hiring the right person to developing and evaluating them, and then all of these contribute to an organization's success. Is that right? So can anyone remind us one method that we used in recruiting or selection out of what we discussed in our last class? Just one method used in recruitment or selection of a candidate.
By screening,
Okay,
interview and
yeah,
screening.
fantastic. Yeah, interviews, tests, job advertisements. We talk about job boards, and then referrals as well. We also talked about having being connected with the community, whereby you can get referrals. All right, so that's fantastic. So transitioning into our week 3, we're going to be looking at, so now that we've understood how employees are brought into the organization and how they are managed, we'll now focus on what next happens. How does the organization manage their records? How does an organization pay them? And how does an organization maintain discipline and handle negotiations, right? Because human beings are individuals that are very difficult to manage, if you know, right? So they're in an organization whereby you have different individuals from different walks of life, different geopolitical zones, different states, different backgrounds. There's going to be chaos. So how do you manage them? How do you ensure that there is discipline? This is what now brings us to our topic today, which is employee record and management, right? So what is employee record and management? As we'll be starting with the employee record and management, every organization must properly document informations about its employees. This is important because organizations rely on these records for decision making, right? It relies on the records for legal protection. It relies on the records for performance tracking, even when it comes to what's it called? Promotions, you rely on these records for that, right? So as we start with employee record management, every organization, whether small or large, must keep proper records of its employees, because these records would help the organization to track everything about the employee from the day they are hired to the day they leave. Okay, so without proper records, it becomes difficult to make these kind of decisions, or to resolve issues, or even to defend the organization legally in situations whereby, you know, the organization is sued by a staff, right? Because some staffs can be very, very unruly. So in a situation whereby you have a legal situation, you can now back your organization because of the due diligence you've taken in filing, right? So objectives of this model: to understand the merits of proper personnel record management, to gain knowledge on policy guiding personnel record management, to get insights to best practices in handling personnel management, right? So the goal of this module is to help you understand why proper record keeping is important. So the policies guiding it and the best practices used in organizations. Now, let's take a look at what employee record is. An employee record simply refers to all the information a company keeps about an employee. This includes their personal details, their employee history, their salary, their performance, and even disciplinary records. So just think of it as an employee's full story, like when they say somebody's biography, just think of it as their biography, right from the day they stepped into your organization, right? So it is a collection of all the information about an employee from the moment they joined the organization to the moment they will leave. Okay, so employers typically keep a number of different employee records, often called personal files, as a way of documenting an employee's relationship with a company from point of entry to exit of an employee. So personnel files may encompass both manual and electronic personnel information. This is used by the organization to establish part or all of an employee's work record. Okay, like we said, this includes personal details, job history, salary records, performance reports, and even disciplinary actions. So from the moment someone submits their CV, attends an interview, gets hired, starts working, gets promoted, or even resigns, everything is documented. As the HR manager of an organization, you have to ensure that these records are properly documented. It could be digitally, it could be manually, which is the normal way that organizations know, which is using files, right? Organizing files. So facts about personnel file. It is known that each employee has a personnel file, right? And this file is usually confidential. And for every organization, be it government, be it private, it is only the HR manager and sometimes the admin that has access to these kind of files, right? Or now, sometimes the employee's direct manager can also access it because he is their reporting officer. So yes, they could also have access to it, but it must be taken, it must be taken or handled by the HR manager or the HR department. So the reason for this is to protect employee privacy and to maintain trust. Because if let's use salaries for example. If employees know about their salaries, usually in organizations we used to say, don't discuss your salaries, right? But you know, staffs would always be staffs. Sometimes they develop friendship, develop family bonds that are not necessary, but it happens, right? And then you get to know how much an individual is earning or how much your colleague is earning, right? And sometimes some of these informations can create bias, it can create amenity, it can create what's the word now? Hatred between each other. A situation whereby you're paying me maybe 150,000 and then you're paying my colleague who are doing the same job 250,000. So why is that? Okay, so these are some of the reasons why we protect staff information. Aside this, we also have health records that some employees wouldn't want such information to be out there. Okay, so that's the reason why the HR manager has to be the one in charge of such records, and it can only be accessed by the HR manager or the admin. So in situations whereby some organizations actually make the HR position to be both HR and admin, but in some other organizations you have the HR separately, you also have the admin. So both individuals can actually have access to staff records. So let's look at types of employee records. Employee records are most often separated into two types of files. We have a general personnel file and we have a confidential employee file. Okay, so which is a common method of documenting staff's information. But now a personnel file may contain documents that fall into one of these categories. We have basic information, right? We have hiring documents, we have job performance and development, we have compensation, termination, and post-employment information, right? So the general personnel file contains basic information, just like the ones we've listed. And we also have the confidential file, which contains sensitive information, like medical records, like we discussed, disciplinary investigations, background checks. So some of these things are kept separately because these things are sensitive informations. So they are informations that you wouldn't want to run into the wrong hands. Okay, because if a part of my life that is private, as an organization, I as a staff coming into an organization, I decide to let you in on such an information, and you decide to let the general public have access to such a record, I would sue you. Okay, so these are some of the reasons why such kind of informations are kept secretly, and they are kept separately because they are private. And if anything happens and you make my private life to be out there, those are situations whereby you see that organizations get to be sued by their staffs. All right. So for confidential files, it is a good idea, and it in certain instances may be legally required to keep certain employee records and information in a confidential file separate from personal file, right? Like the medical records we discussed, the medical records, workers' compensation claims, documents pertaining to an employee investigation, such as a disciplinary action. Let's say, for instance, we are working with a staff and then we got info that this staff used to be a child trafficker or an armed robber. We're just using this as examples, okay? So, and then you take background checks, and then, or even let's say a lady, then you find out that, oh, she has been a street lady or a prostitute. Okay, so these kind of things, and then the organizations that she's working with maybe will require working with stakeholders, working with investors, working with high class value clients for the organization. So you would have to now take background checks on such an individual, and in doing such, you get to dig out a lot of information about this person that this person wouldn't want to be out there. So when such information is gathered, it is now kept in a document that is confidential, and such documents are kept in a different vault or in a different office where it can only be accessed by the HR manager or the admin manager. Even the managing director cannot access those files, only on request. Okay, and even that request has to be on special occasions. Is that clear? So when managing employee records, we have to be consistent. Are we here? These are best practices in record management. Consistency is very important because employees' records should be handled in the same way in order to ensure fairness. That's for each employee. Access should be limited to only authorized individuals, like we mentioned, which is the HR and the admin, because this would help maintain confidentiality. Also, records should be properly categorized and regularly reviewed to ensure that they are accurate and up to date. For organizations that hire their staffs, that keep staffs for years, 5, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years working with staffs. So I'm pretty sure that the life that they had as at the time that they came into the organization would not be the same. So you have to do what is called updating their records. Okay, in order to be up to date, in order for your files and your documents to be up to date. Now, records should be properly categorized, regularly reviewed in order to ensure accuracy to date. Organizations must also follow retention rules. Some records need to be kept for several years, especially for legal and tax purposes. There are instances whereby a staff would resign, and so you'll be wondering, since this person has left the organization, is there still a need to keep their records? Oh yes, there is. It's very, very important for documentation purposes. Aside even taxes itself, calculating tax and all of that, for legal purposes, like we said. Okay, so sometimes an individual can come asking you for referrals as well. So how will you be able to refer such an individual to another organization? You would have to now go to their database and then look at their records, and then you would know, okay, was this person a good staff as well as at the time they were with us? You check their files, you check, oh, there were no disciplinary actions, there was no any sort of misconduct. This individual was a good staff while they were with us. And so when you want to write such referrals or recommendations, you know that, okay, those records will now help you, which is one of the reasons why you have to keep them. Right? Now, records should also be separated into categories such as the general and the confidential. Okay, like we said, you know what the general files consist of. You know what the confidential file consists of. So organizations must also follow record retention rules, right? Like we mentioned. Now, finally, files should be audited regularly to ensure they are accurate and up to date. Best practices in record management. Consistency. Access should be limited. Records should be properly categorized. Organizations must follow retention rules. Records should be separated into categories. Organizations must also follow record retention. And finally, files should be audited regularly. Is that okay? Are we clear on that?
Wow.
Okay, so let's look at categories of how records are kept. We have paper versus electronic records. Because we mentioned that you can store information electronically, right? You can also store them the manual method, which is keeping the paper. So in the past, most organizations that use paper-based systems outgrew such system because papers, are bulky. They are just going to consume space. At the end of the day, some informations will get missing, some papers get lost, and it's going to now be difficult to maintain these staff records, right? So that is why many organizations now use the electronic systems, because these systems make it easier to store, to organize, and even to access the records. Because in instances whereby you need to share, you don't have to now start carrying papers up and down, start mailing them, or we're billing them to maybe the higher office. Okay, but when it's saved electronically, all you have to do is what? Share the documents if you're using a Google Docs, or you email the documents. You email the documents as a file. Okay. Now, so for software record keeping, there are several software tools that are used in managing employee records. We have the Bamboo HR, we have Zoho Recruit, and others. So we also have free options, which are like the Aptivo, My HR. Okay, so there are different apps depending on the organization. Some are paid, some are free. Okay, so these are the way that technology has brought about better, proper document management. Okay, so depending on the organization that you are in, you could make use of these paid HR software applications, or you make use of the free HR applications. And in organizations where they don't want all of this, you could also use your Google Docs, your Google Drive. I'm sure you're familiar with your Google Drive. Okay, that's if you don't, if you're not conversant with that, you also have your Microsoft Word. You could save them as Word documents, but the essence of using a Google Drive is because it is there year in, year out, and you can access it on any system so long as you have your login details. Okay, so now having those informations electronically would help you to be able to access them. All you have to do is type in the name of the individual or type in the year that they were hired, or you just go into a file or a drive that has staff information, and then all you have to scroll and you will find the information of the staff that you're looking for, depending on the category. Is it disciplinary actions you're looking for? Is it promotions you're looking for? Every information will be there. Okay, unlike the paper method of saving staff documents. All right, are we clear on the paper and electronic records?
Yes, ma.
Okay, so why are employee records important? Can someone just tell me why employee records are important? Why do you think employee records are important? I just want to hear from somebody.
Okay.
I think for easy monitoring, ma'am.
Okay. Who else?
It also helps to give full details about the individual. It helps to know deeper who and what kind of person the individual is.
Okay. Another one.
It helps on record keeping.
Fantastic. Who else can help us with why employee records are important?
It helps
Also,
to keep track of employees and also to have a background knowledge.
Fantastic. So these records are important because they help the organization make fair and informed decisions. For example, if an employee is being considered for promotion, the company will just check their performance records, right? If there is a dispute, the company can refer to documented evidence, right? They also protect both the employee and the employer legally. So if there is any misunderstanding, the record serves as proof. I like to give examples. So I remember the man I was mentoring under, who was mentoring me, one of my mentors. So during the time where I was working with him, usually when they want to give staff a query, they will give query like 3 different times. So I asked, why do we have to give staff query like 3 times? He said, this is for documentation purposes. All right. When a staff commits, and then as the HR manager, you find out, okay, what's the problem? And you document it. It is written there. This is what he has committed, and this is the disciplinary action that has been taken. When he commits the second time, he documents it. When he commits the third time, which is the last strike, he also documents it. So now, after the third strike is given, anything that happens again, the staff would automatically be what? Be sacked. You know that is automatic sack letter you're getting. You don't even have to wait for another strike or for warning, because sometimes human beings are like goats, they don't hear word, right? You give them warning the first time, they will still go and repeat it. You give them warning the second time, they will repeat it. In fact, you will just keep talking. So the HR system has made it in such a way that when strikes are given like up to 3, if you as a staff that you have sense, you know you have sense, by the time they give you the second strike, you'll be very careful, in the sense that it will now help you to function like a normal human being. Come to work on time, make sure that there's no dispute between you and your colleagues, make sure that your job is done as a time that it ought to be done, because why? You know that after the third strike, you're going to get a sack letter. And in instances whereby a staff feels like, why are you sacking me? Is it just because I came late? Or is it because I just did this? Is it because I spoiled your machines in the office? When they did not decide to take you to court and say, oh, they've been treated unjustly, you can bring your documentation and say, this is it. And in that way, you've done what? Liberated the organization. You've saved the organization from a lawsuit, right? And what will happen? You would win automatically because you have your proofs, right? You know, in the law court, you cannot just go and say, oh, it is my decision as an organization that I don't want to work. It will not work. You will pay. You will pay through your nose. The money that you don't want to pay them for salary, you will pay it in the courts. Okay. So, but those documentations would now help you, right, in a situation whereby you have lawsuits. Okay. So it serves as proof in situations whereby legal issues come up or there's a misunderstanding. So personnel files and confidentiality. Each employee has a personal file, and these files contain sensitive information because, like I said, we have the normal records and we have the confidential records. Okay? So now, these records must be handled with strict confidentiality. Not everyone in the organization can access these records. Usually, only the HR department can allow the direct manager to have access. So it is important because employee information is exposed and it can lead to loss of trust, it can lead to legal issues, it can even lead to identity theft. Okay? So types of employee records, we have usually employee records are divided into different categories. To make them easier, we'll just manage. The first is the general personnel file. This contains basic information like the employee's details, the employee history, their salary, and their performance records. Then the second is the confidential file. This contains highly sensitive information such as their medical records, like we discussed, their disciplinary records, investigations on their backgrounds, all right, their background checks. These are part of the employee records, okay? Are we now clear on employee records?
Yes,
Does
ma'am.
anyone have any question before we move to the next topic?
Please, ma, I'm just suggesting that it should be showing us the slide as you are explaining downward, like the slide you also be showing, so that will be taking some of the things.
Okay, all right, that's fine. So some of the things I'm saying are not actually in this slide, okay? These are just explanations. But where we just finished talking about what best practices in record management. We talked about consistency, we talked about limit access, storage, day-to-day access. These are the things we discussed. So some of it, we talked about paper and electronics, right? Some of the things that I'm explaining are not in this slide. These are just explanations to help you best understand these subtopics that we're discussing. Is that clear?
Yes, ma'am.
This last slide talks about the software and personnel record keeping, and we discussed that. We talked about the paid softwares that are used by HR managers. We talked about the free softwares that are used by HR managers. You remember, right? Is that clear? Let's ask the question. Okay. So now we are talking about wage and salary administration. Now, moving to wage and salary administration. This is one of the most important aspects of HR because it directly affects employee satisfaction. Because compensation is one of the biggest factors that can affect an employee satisfaction. It is not just the amount of money that you give to an employee or whether they feel the pay is fair or not. How employees feel about their salary can determine their motivation. Okay, so sometimes their performance is, let me say, influenced by the salary, by the wage, the compensation that is given to them. And it's also determined whether they stay in the organization or not. So employees' compensation is one of the major determinants of employee satisfaction in an organization. The compensation policy and the reward system of an organization are viewed by the employee as indicators of the management's attitude and concern for them. It is not just the compensation in total, but its fairness is perceived by the employees, and that determines their success, that determines the success of a wage and salary administration system. Okay? So a good wage and salary administration should be able to attract and retain employees. It should be able to give them fair deal. It should be able to keep the organization competitive and motivate employees to perform their best. So let me start by asking you something. If two people are doing the same job, but one is paid more than the other, how will the other person feel? In situations whereby they find out, get to know what they are earning, how do you think the other person would feel for doing the same job as you?
Very bad.
I'm upset too.
Okay. How else would you feel? Who else? How would you feel if you're in their position? You find out that you and I are doing the same job.
I would feel cheated.
The person will
Exactly.
feel bad and upset.
Okay, very good. It's going to be unfair. It's going to be demotivating and even angry, because this is why salary and wage administration is not just about paying money. It is about fairness, perception, and value. So as a HR manager, you need to have a salary policy as to how a position is supposed to earn, what compensations are to be given to the position, what packages comes with the position. Okay, so let's use health insurance for instance. In an organization that pays health insurance, because it's not every organization that pays health insurance for staffs, right? You know that as a staff management of the company, you know, we have regular staffs, we have managers, and then we have the CEOs, CFOs, MDs, and all of that. So for managers, you know that the class of health insurance that you're going to be getting is going to be higher than that of just a regular staff. There are different packages in health insurance. I don't know if you guys know how health insurance is done, right? But there are different packages. For some, they say it's gold, silver, platinum. Okay, so now all these packages come with different amounts, and each amount is dependent on your position as a staff. So I know that if I'm in a managerial position, I should be having access to what? A gold or platinum health insurance package, right? And these packages are inclusive of different things. I am not a health insurance staff, but you know that, okay, if I'm to go to the hospital with my health insurance PIN, I know that it's not just malaria and headache or Panadol that they will treat me. Okay, it could also go as far as blood testing, right? Depending on the package. So if as a manager, I now realize that, oh, I am being offered health insurance package with regular staffs, but my colleague is having a gold or platinum package. Why? Is it because the manager likes them? Is it because it's the brother of the manager? Is it because it's the friend of the manager? It's going to bring about work bias, going to bring about demotivation. There's not going to be motivation to work anymore. All I'm going to now be thinking is, let me do and leave this place and move to a better organization, right? But when there is fairness, when there is transparency, I know that, oh, as a regular staff, if I am able to perform well and I get promoted to a managerial position, I have access to this kind of things. All right?
Yes, ma'am.
Fantastic. So as a HR, I want you to understand that people don't just leave jobs, they live on fair paid systems. Situations whereby they are not treated fairly, they would leave. But a system that is properly documented, a system that is that has proper systems in place, staffs will stay. In fact, they could even get offers of, let's say in my present organization, I'm earning 200,000 and an offer of 250,000 comes. And I look at it, the one of 250,000 does not have insurance, it does not have paid leave, it does not have antenatal benefits. You know, for those who get pregnant, some organizations can give you 6 months leave, some can give you 3, but this is just staying, okay? Because I believe the highest should be 2 months or 3 months, depending on the organization. But some will pay you for those leaves. So I would reconsider it. Those benefits are what are going to help me to stay, right? So a good salary system does 4 major things. It attracts good people, it keeps them from leaving, it motivates them to perform, and it keeps the company competitive. All right? If company A pays 150 and company B pays 250K for the same role, the only thing that would make you stay is the benefits. Okay? So a good salary system should attract employees, it should retain them and motivate them to perform well. This would keep the organization competitive. It should also be fair, as employees are not just concerned about how much they are paid, but whether they feel the pay is fair compared to others. Right. I have a friend who was working in an organization as an accountant, right? And I think he was paid about 300K as of the time I knew. But somehow, the workload he was carrying in that organization was something else. As well as there were no benefits. There was no insurance packages, there was no pension coverage, there was no paid leave. As a matter of fact, there was no leave itself. You don't even have to be paid. At least give me leave. Let me have time to go and rest. No, you would have to work Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. So imagine that kind of work structure. And then you're being paid only 300, you're being paid 300,000. What happened? He got another offer of about 180,000. But that offer was going to come with all those other benefits. And guess what? He took it. Why? Because he understands that, okay, in this organization, there is opportunity for growth. Okay? Aside the opportunity for growth, there is health insurance coverage. If I fall sick, I know that I'm not going to be treating myself from my pockets. The organization cares about my health. Aside that, there is even gym, what they call that, a subscription. So they don't just care about your health, they care about your fitness as well. They also have paid leave. Aside that, they also have 13th month payment. If you were you, which organization would you go for? A or B?
B. Oh.
Exactly. Because why? Because of the benefits, regardless of how much you are being paid. So that's one thing organizations need to understand, that it's not just about the payments. Some staffs don't even care about payments. But let me know that, okay, I'm in a system that cares about my welfare, cares about my well-being as an individual, and not just as a tool for accomplishing their job duties and obligations. Okay, so salary decisions are very sensitive because they directly affect employee morale and productivity. In the past, salaries were based on job roles, but today organizations also consider performance and contribution. There was a time where we wanted to employ an EA, right? I think I mentioned that in our last class. So, and the amount that this EA was going to be paid was almost equivalent to that of our project manager. And we asked why. So when the job description was listed, you could see that the job description of the EA was cumbersome. It was almost relative to that of the program manager, or even more, because dealing with the MD of a company that handles 3 different subsidiaries is not small work. And as the executive assistant, you have to be in charge of all these things. Okay, but for a program manager, you're handling just one project for one organization at a time. Okay, so those are the factors that now determined what the pay was going to be. All right. So job evaluation. Now let's understand something very important. Not all jobs are equal. A cleaner and a HR manager and a software developer cannot be paid the same way. Can someone tell me why?
Because of their value.
Okay, fantastic. Who else?
Because their job description are not the same.
Fantastic. Responsibilities are different, yes. Who else?
And the impact the position is going to add to the company.
Fantastic. The impact is different. Their skills are different. So the job evaluation helps the company to decide which job is more valuable, right? And so that will determine how to arrange the salary based on each role. So job evaluation is the process of determining how valuable a job is within an organization. This is important because not all jobs are equal. Some require more skills, some have more responsibilities, or efforts are more than others. And this should be reflected in their salaries. All right? Because a situation whereby I, as a HR manager, realize that you are paying a regular staff more than me, what's going to happen? There's going to be bad feelings. There's going to be bad blood between us, because I'm going to feel like this is not a fair system. I'm not in a fair environment. Okay, it's either they're undermining my efforts, or they don't value me as and this thing skills I bring into the organizations. Okay, so what's going to happen? I'm going to begin to look for another opportunity out there, and the organization is going to suffer because you're now going to begin to now start recruiting afresh. So job evaluation ensures that salary are assigned fairly based on responsibility and importance. Okay, so based on the slide, we said job evaluation helps to determine the relative worth of a job in an organization in a systematic and consistent and accurate manner. It also helps in estimating the basic pay for each job in accordance with the importance of the job in the organizational hierarchy. Let's use cleaners and drivers, for example. Who do you think should earn more between a cleaner and driver of an organization?
The driver.
Fantastic. In as much as that's the right answer, what made you to arrive at that decision?
Driving is a skill, man. Unlike cleaning, everyone, like anybody can do it.
Okay, fantastic. And aside that, as the driver, you are expected to be in the office 247. Okay, because the manager may want to go out, the marketing team would like to go out, legal would like to go out and sort out legal things. So you are on the job 247. In fact, weekends too, your services could be required. But for a cleaner, you come in the morning, you clean. At the end of the day, you ensure that the place is clean as well. So your job is not as demanding as that of the driver, in as much as both of them could not be managerial positions, but there is hierarchy, there is importance based on the duties and the roles of the job. All right. So how do we now determine compensation package? Compensation package. An employee's compensation is not just their salary. Okay, it includes bonuses, it includes incentives and other benefits like allowances. An employee's compensation includes salary, incentives, rewards, and benefits. So this complete package is what organizations use to attract and retain employees. Last week, we talked about how recruitment is done and how when you want to recruit, you don't just send out job vacancies without putting in the necessary details that are needed, because you will finish your interview. If your interview is about 3 different stages, you will finish the 3rd stage and realize that the person you've wasted time and energy and effort on is not going to stay because you are not transparent in laying out the packages involved with the job, such as the salary, the compensation, the benefits. Okay, because if I was a manager in Fidelity Bank and you want me to now come to Access Bank and the benefit you're giving me is not up to what is in Fidelity Bank, I'm going to decline at the end of the 3rd stage of the interview, right? So those are the things that have to now be included in your organization. So it's a complete package of what organization use to attract and retain employees, right? Like I said about the accountant that rejected the offer of 300K for another company that was paying him 180, simply because it had what? Health insurance, it had flexible work pay, it has 13th month, it had fitness subscription. Okay, so even the smallest salary can make an employee to leave your organization because of the compensation packages that are not there. Factors affecting salary. Let me look at that so that we can use this slide. Factors affecting salary. Right? So let's look at demand and supply. If a skill is rare, it is going to be what? Expensive. For instance, tech skills like data analyst or Salesforce pay higher. Why is that? Because fewer people are in that space. It's not everybody that is conversant with the upcoming tech trends or the recent tech roles now that are in the market. Most of the things that we studied in the university are what? medicine, law, mass communication, what do they call that in public admin. Do you understand? But now with the introduction of technology, with the advancement of technology and all of that, roles have now gone into the technological sector. So it's skills like data analyst, Salesforce, graphic design, what's this one? All these people that code, right?
Programmers.
Exactly. These are the skills that are now in the market, and they are what? They are expensive to pay them. That's because the skill is rare, and that's what makes it expensive. Okay, so that's demand and supply. Company ability. A startup cannot pay like a big company. I have had an instance where we're going to get a copper to come and work with us, and somehow management was willing to pay the copper about 100K, right? So it is known that organizations that can pay a copper such amount of money, minimum wage now is 70 something thousand, right? Which was just increased of recent. As of then, minimum wage was 33, which is what coppers were earning, right? So any organization that could pay a copper 50,000 self as of then was hot cake, right? Coppers used to look for it. So management was willing to pay the copper 100K. Why? Because of relationship, and it didn't sit well with admin managers, right? Because why would we want to give such amount of money to a copper? Plus, there are 70 something thousand. It seemed like it was too biased, right? Because we know that, okay, it is not in the company's ability to pay such an amount. So why go that far? All right. So that's why we say company ability. A startup cannot pay like a big company. Only the only organizations that can pay such an amount are probably government institutions, or even big tech companies such as the Microsoft, such as Google, such as Moneypoint. Okay, that is all those tech companies, for instance. So the size of the company also determines the kind of pay that you will get. Just like a small business company in Wuse cannot pay like Dangote Group. Are we understanding that?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So cost of living is also a factor that affects salary, right? When fuel increases, everything increases. Salaries may also adjust. Recently, the prices of fuel have drastically increased. So transportation has also increased. It has not just increased, it has probably doubled or tripled. I was hearing my colleagues complain about it, and it was something else. You would realize that at the end of the day, staff's pay use almost half of their salary on just transportation alone. Okay, so that's cost of living. Now, that is also used in calculating how salaries are to be paid. Can someone tell me why you think people relocate abroad? Why do you think people relocate abroad?
One of the reasons is because they are being paid hourly. Secondly, the currency, when being converted to our local currency here, is very, very high, the payment.
Fantastic. Fantastic. For better pay and then better cost of living. My husband had a friend who traveled to the UK, and while he was here, even to get by a computer was a problem. But the moment he relocated abroad, within 2 months, this guy wanted to buy a real estate property here in Nigeria. I mean, Abuja, and if you know Abuja very well, you know that Gwarimpa is like the center of Abuja. So it's a high demand place. So in order for you to get a property in such an area, you need to have millions. And that is where this guy wanted to buy a property. So imagine if he had stayed in Nigeria, waiting for a job. What would have happened? He would have still been backward, just there thinking, oh God, why am I behind? What is happening to my life? Are my village people pursuing me? But no, it's because of better opportunities and proper cost of living. Okay, so let's look at principles of wage administration. For a salary to be effective, it must be fair and equitable. So employees doing similar work should receive similar pay. It should also be competitive, meaning that it should align with what other companies are paying in the market. Okay, a good system must ensure fairness, competitiveness, equal pay, motivation, efficiency, and compliance with laws. So the system must also comply with laws and regulations. Just like we say that minimum wage now is about 70-something thousand, right? So you cannot pay not even your cleaner less than that amount, because you are not working in compliance with the rule of law. The rule of law says that what minimum wage is 70-something thousand. So if you want to pay, if you don't want to even pay your cleaner too much, at least pay them that minimum wage. Okay, that's as little as the cleaner will, not to talk of management. All right, these are some of the things that now determine wage administration. Okay, so prerequisites for sound compensation system is job analysis. This would involve understanding the duties and responsibilities of the requirements of the job. Okay, we have job evaluation, determining the value of the job. Like we used an example of the cleaner and the driver, and who is going to earn more. After we looked at, okay, their job duties and responsibilities, the kind of value that both of them bring, we came at the conclusion that what the driver would earn more. That's after the evaluation of the job. Now, knowledge of the market. This will now determine how much we pay that driver. Okay, because it involves understanding industry trends. You would understand that, okay, company A pays drivers about 150,000, company B pays about 80,000, company C pays about 120,000. Now you've understood that, okay, in the market, this is what is the offer for the position of a driver. So as an organization, we would now use these factors to determine how much we can pay such a position or such an individual. Is that okay? That's using knowledge of the market. Then clarity of objectives. The organization must know what it wants to achieve, whether it is attracting talent or motivating employees, right? If you are just attracting the right talent, then why? You have to go beyond the market trend. If you are motivating employees, then you would now have to include benefits. Okay? So, who can tell me the difference between wage and salary?
Okay, wage can be paid, per hour or per minute. While salaries can be paid maybe weekly or monthly.
Fantastic. Wages are usually paid hourly or daily, and salaries are fixed. They are monthly based. Right. So factors affecting salaries. We have several factors that influence how salaries are determined. Supply of labor. If a skill is scarce, employees with that skill will be paid more, right? Because the financial strength of the organization also determines, also matters, because companies that are doing well financially can afford to pay higher salaries. And again, the cost of living is another factor. Like we talked about, fuel that has increased. Now, that's the cost of living. because transportation is going to definitely increase. And at the end of the day, if your workers use half of their salary on transportation, they would not have anything to be able to eat. At the end of the day, people are now thinking, if a staff is not comfortable where they are, and they're beginning to think, I need a different source of income, what's going to happen? Their mind will no longer be stable on the job, because they're going to begin to look for other opportunities that can sort their daily living, that can sort their personal needs, that can sort their cost of living in general. Right? So as prices increase, salaries may need to be adjusted. Okay, so other factors that include productivity, job requirements, government regulations. All these are factors that are affecting how salaries are determined. So methods of wage payments. We have time rate system. In this system, employees are paid based on the time they work, such as per hour or per month. Okay? Now, as an employee, you need to understand that you are paid per time, not effort. For example, a receptionist earns 80K monthly. Whether the work is busy or it is not, she is paid for the time that she is at the office. Okay? No motivation, no extra work. That's the time rate system. Then we have the piece rate system. Let me get that. The piece rate system, here employees are paid based on the amount of work that they complete. This can motivate employees to be more productive, but it may affect the quality of their work. So now you are paid for what you produce. We can use the example of a tailor that is paid per cloth that they sew. The advantage is more work would mean more money. But the only problem is when quality drops, money will drop. Okay? Then we have the balance and depth system. This system combines both the time rates, the piece rates, and employees are guaranteed a minimum wage but can earn more based on their performance. Is that okay?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Fantastic. So in this system, you have a guaranteed salary, you have plus extra performance. For example, let's use a sales rep that earns 100K for sales with commission. So you know that 100K is your base pay, and then when you make sales of an item, you have either 1% commission depending on the item. If it's real estate, I think they have about 7% on commission. So this would motivate you to do what? To sell more, because it will now protect you as an employee and it will motivate your performance. You know that, oh, this month I want to be able to earn about 1 million naira. I know that my salary is 100,000, but if as a real estate sales agent, I am able to, get a client that purchases a land of about 100 million and I get 7% of that. Who can calculate that for me? 7% of 100 million.
It should be about 700,000.
That's 7 million.
7 million, sorry.
Of 100, that's about 7 million. Okay? So that will do what? Motivate your performance. It will make you to go out and work. Right? So in real life, companies that want high performance would use the balance system and not just the fixed salary. Is that okay? So to determine wages, organizations first analyze the job, then they evaluate its worth and compare with market rates, and then finally decide the salary structure. So ingredients of a good wage system. If we look at a good wage system, it should be simple. It should be easy to calculate. It should be motivating, attractive, and fair. All right. And one of the processes of wage determination is what? Follow steps like job analysis, market survey, and setting salary structure and defining rules. Okay. Our next subtopic would be discipline. Does anyone have any question on wage and salary so that we can look into that? If you have questions on wages and salaries, how they are determined. If there are no questions on that, then we'll move to our next topic.
I do. Good
Okay.
morning, ma.
Good morning.
Okay, so in a situation where someone applied for a role, okay, maybe
Yes.
through referral, and let's say they're paying the current, they needed a shift, so they're paying the first person 100K, and then when the referral came in, they decided to pay the other person, let's say 50K, and all this while the person is thinking that his mate or his colleague is also receiving 50K, only to find out that the organization is actually paying her half of what they're paying his colleague. How do
Yeah.
you do it? Can you approach the HR manager, and how can the HR manager maybe talk to the organization for a fair payment?
Okay, that's fantastic. So these are some of the reasons why documents are confidential, and we used to tell staff not to share what they earn as salaries. But a situation whereby that is now found, so now in order to be able to retain the staff, in order to ensure that there is fairness, and in order to bring about motivation while they are doing their job, you would either have to make sure that you now look into the payments, as admin or management, you now say, oh, okay, we'll look into it. Or so person came in as at the time we're about to review salaries, and so we had to now pay them the salary review, so that when it's time for salary review, we won't have to now review their salaries again. Okay, we had an instance where a new staff came on board, and the staff was paid more than the staff that were on ground. Why was that? The staff came in a month to when salaries were going to be reviewed, right? So the salary structure for that position was, let's say, at 250,000, right? While the current salary that the person would have collected would have been 150,000. So if as a new person you're coming in, and then the organizational policy was to review salaries a month after, it's not going to be nice that as you're coming in, we're not review your salary to 100,000 plus. All right. So as an organization, as the HR manager, you say, okay, let's just give the person the salary that is reviewed. Okay, that's also an explanation you could give. And then when it's time for salary review, the individual that was there before would now have a salary raise to fit the role that the person is carrying. Or instances whereby you know that there's not going to be salary review, you would have to increase that person's salary to either the same position as of the person that was recommended, or more, depending on their job roles and responsibilities. So if I as an individual know that, oh, they are paying me with partiality, what I would do is shut up my mouth. Okay, I don't know if that has answered your question.
Okay, but is that really fair on the organization part? Is that fair on the organization part for an organization to pay an individual a different amount from the other? Is that really fair? I feel that there should be rules or laws that govern these things. That there should be rules or laws governing the wages and salary structure in an organization, because two persons should not be doing the same job and then paid differently. It's really unfair and saddening. It's something I actually experienced, and it was really, I felt really bad with the energy I put in to find out that I was paid lesser than. Yes, it was really, I should have felt heartbreaking. Then also, how often should an organization review their salary?
Okay, that's fantastic. So for the part of fairness, if you remember, I talked about the copper who was coming in and the copper was earning about 100,000. That's almost the same amount we're paying our IT person. It's just few amounts difference. Okay, and it was not fair, but the organization was willing to pay that amount because of relationship. Okay, so that was based on bias. They're being biased. All right. So it's actually not fair, but organizations do that. Some organizations don't follow rules and regulations. They could make exceptions for certain employees. All right, but I don't know if in Nigeria if that can ever be resolved, because even in politics, we know how politics is, right? So even in organizations, there is what they call politics being played. All right. So I don't think that can ever be resolved. The only thing you can do is be held accountable. So that is why certain structures have to be put in place. Salary structure has to be put in place for onboarded staffs, for staffs that have been there. And then talking about structure for reviewing salaries. Some organizations review salaries based on inflow for a year, based on their budget inflow for a year, while some organizations actually do a quarterly salary review. That's like twice a year, let's say at the beginning or at the mid of the year, and then towards the end of the year, right? While some review salaries once every year. So depending on the organization and depending on budgets for that year, you can now determine if, okay, salaries can be reviewed. For some organizations, you know that, oh, as of June or July, my salary is going to be reviewed. Though. For some organizations, as a staff, you know that, oh, it is on God. Though. If our salaries are reviewed, glory be to God. If it is not, we also know that, okay, this is what is applicable for this organization, right? So that is why as an organization, you have to be competitive. You have to make sure that you set standards that would help employees to be retained in the organization. Put structures in place that when they come in, they wouldn't want to go. And while they are there, they know that, okay, there's growth. There's a growth process here. If I stay for 2-3 years, I know that, okay, I'm going to be in a managerial position. If I stay here for a year or two, even if I come in with the offer of 120,000, I know that in the next 2 or 3 years, I should be able to be earning about 300 to 400K, right? So it all depends on the organization, and it depends on you as the HR manager to enforce those policies, to enforce those rules, right?
Okay. Okay, so please, one last question. Can an
Go ahead.
individual in an organization meet an HR manager and then ask for his or her salary to be reviewed, like only for her? Like when it's not due time, is that possible? Can an HR manager maybe speak with the organization to review a certain individual salary, even when it's not time? Is it possible?
Definitely, very, very possible. So, in as much as it's possible, you also need to understand that just because you want your salary to be reviewed doesn't mean that they will give you the amount that you're looking for. Now, I have 2 examples that I will give you of I had a friend who was working for an organization as their IT person, right? And this IT person was working, they had an international organization that we were working with. So this person was conversant with the system and was handling a lot of troubleshootings, complaints from field agents. Do you understand? So he just felt like, well, the workload that he's handling is cumbersome for the amount that he's being paid for, right? So he feels like the workload he's taking on is too much for the amount of money that he's being paid. And how much was he paid? I think it was about 250,000 as of the time. So he came, sent an email to the HR manager and asked for a review of 500,000. In as much as that amount was nothing, but the program manager was earning about 350,000. So if we're going to review your salary to 500,000, that means you're going to be earning more than the program manager, which is not proper. So in order to review your salary, we would have to review that of the program manager, or we try and bring your salary close to the program manager, right? But what happened in his case? Management felt like he was being too nosy. Probably he began to see documents or budgets of things that were coming into the organization, and so they felt like they were not going to review his salary. And he said, okay, if that's the case, then I'm giving you 1 month notice for my resignation. And what happened? He resigned. And the company had to now begin to look for another replacement for his position. Now, the easiest thing to have done was to come to an agreement. Okay, this amount you're looking for cannot be paid because of so and so and so. We would have to look into also reviewing the program manager. Or how about you wait maybe 2 months time when salaries will be reviewed? Okay, at least if such a conversation was agreed upon, the staff would have, looked into it and say, okay, fine, that's okay. I know that in 2-3 months, salaries will be reviewed, so which means that the program manager's salary will be reviewed. And so there's possibility of mine also being reviewed. Okay? But it wasn't. And then the repercussions was what? It brought the company back. Systems were gathered in the office because problems were not solved. Systems were not being troubleshooted. So field work was paused. Like there was a lot of things that were going bad. So the best thing in that situation was to do what? Adhere to the staff's request for a salary review. In as much as you might not give them what they ask for, try to come to an agreement with them. Okay? Then we have staff B in another organization. Now, this staff comes to you and says, oh, this person is in a marketing position, and says, oh, I came in contact with an international partner who is willing to pay me ₦1 million, just to still come and do the same thing that I'm doing for you as an organization. But if you can be able to match my salary, I would stay. And you know that, okay, this staff is really bringing in money to this organization as a marketer. He's bringing in business partners, he's bringing in customers. And in order not to lose you and start looking for somebody else, because it's not easy to get staff, so it's not easy it's not everybody that can do the job that a certain individual or certain staff is doing in an organization. It will take time for the person to learn your product, to learn the system of the organization, and then begin to even, put in their own ideas and see how they can function and push the organization forward. So an organization that has sense, what do? They matched the salary. They didn't just match the salary, they made you a managing partner. Well, if you won't you stay? With a system that you're already conversant with, wouldn't you stay in that system? I need an answer.
I will
Yes.
stay.
Fantastic. So imagine you earning about 450,000 to ₦1 million simply because of requests simply because of salary review requests that you brought on board. Now, is either you review my salary or I'll accept the offer that was given to me. Whether the person stays or the person leaves is a win-win for the person. But you as an organization, it's either going to be a win or lose for you. If you match the salary, it's a win for you because the person is going to bring in deals, going to bring in businesses. But if you decide, no, we can't match simply because you came to come and request, what will happen? The person would leave. So it's a win-win on the individual. That's why we used to say that individuals or staffs don't lose organizations. It's organizations that lose. Okay, the only thing that they will leave is the salaries. They don't leave their work, they don't leave their ideas, they don't leave their work ethics. The only thing they will leave for you is the salaries that you're paying them. Is that okay? So it's left for you and the organization to decide, okay, should we match their request or should we decline it? And it also has to do with the organization. Is the organization capable to meet that demand? Okay, does their inflow or does their budget for that year, is it capable to be able to, pay that amount of money? Okay, and then when you pay such amount of money, you know that what is it called? It's not going to bring about problems between you and other staffs. That's why I brought the issue about the program manager and how it was resolved. In as much as it wasn't resolved in the proper manner, they were also considering, okay, if we're going to review your salary, we also have to try to review that of your superior, because it's going to bring about immunity. How can I be the one managing you and then you're earning more than me? All right, regardless of the workload that you do. Is that clear?
Yes, ma. Thank you.
Fantastic. Does anyone else have any other question before we look into our next topic? Does any other person have any other question before we look into our next topic? If there are no
I have
questions,
a question.
okay, go ahead, please.
Yes, I don't know if it's related to the topic, but I just is in terms of policy, company policies. So since the HRO has been simply defined as a middleman between the company and the employees, so is it possible, since the company already is, for instance, the company is already established and they have their own policies, can the HR manager suggest policies, maybe something that is not, if it's not suitable, or if it's not something that that is possible for the company, can the HR manager bring solutions, like suggest company policies, or that company policy is solely for the executive people or the MD of the company?
Sorry, can you come again? I was a bit distracted.
Okay, so my question is, can a HR manager bring company policies? Can they suggest company policies, in as much as they are not the CEO or MD, but they are just the middleman between the employee and employer? So can the HR manager bring? So okay, thank you.
Yeah, definitely. That's why you're the HR manager. You're supposed to see that what you create policy. In fact, it is the HR manager that creates policies. Okay.
Yes, ma.
Yes, ma'am.
I don't hear you, ma.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear
Yes,
you.
ma'am. Very now.
Okay. So I said it is the job of the HR manager to create these policies for the organization, to protect the organization as well as the staff in the organization. Okay. Are we clear on that?
Yes, ma.
Okay, so we'll move to our next topic, which is discipline. Discipline is simply put in an approach which aims at instilling orderly behavior and respect for willing obedience to a recognized authority. So industry Simply put, discipline is an approach which aims at instilling orderly behavior and respect for willing obedience to recognized authority. Right? So, industrial discipline is crucial for healthy industrial environments and for escalating production and productivity. So the promotion and maintenance of employee discipline brings about multifarious benefits to the organization and its employees in the form of attainment to goals for smooth functioning of the organizational environment. It is also the exercise of restraint or the enforcement of penalties on the employees, right? So discipline and organization refers to the behavior of employees in following rules and regulations, right? So it ensures that order and respect is adhered to. It brings about smooth operation within the organization. So imagine a workplace where people come late, or nobody follows rules, or no consequences for bad behavior. What will happen? Will that company or organization grow?
No, ma.
No, ma.
Exactly. So that is why discipline is necessary. Now let's look at the meaning of discipline. Discipline is not just about punishment. Okay, it also involves self-control and willingness to follow rules. Discipline means getting obedience to rules and regulations of the organization. Discipline is obedience, application of energy, and outward mark of respect. Also, discipline is an employee's self-control, which motivates him to comply with the organization's goal and objectives. Discipline can mean any of these things, okay? So we have positive and negative discipline. That's on the concept of discipline. So under concepts of discipline, the dialogue between the workers and the managers in a work setting paved the way to the emergence of concept of the discipline, which is negative and positive. So negative discipline uses fear. It uses punishment or control to control behaviors of staff, while positive discipline focuses on encouraging employees to behave correctly through understanding the cooperation between modern organizations. And discipline also, builds trust and long-term commitment between staffs in an organization, right? If you remember the example I used the last time of workplace policies and how to deal with staffs coming in late, what did I say? We brought about a logbook that would ensure that staffs sign in when they come in and sign out. No, that is a form of ensuring discipline. Okay, it did not require us telling, unlike how they do it in secondary schools. For secondary schools, when you come late, what will happen? They'll keep you outside the gates, or you will kneel down in the middle of the school compound, and maybe after a while, the discipline master will now come and flog you. I don't know if people have been flogged for late coming before in secondary school, but me have been flogged. That generator wire, that one for grinding machine, and that's what they use in instilling discipline, right? But in a workplace whereby that you're not just dealing with children, you can't tell them to hold their ears and begin to punish them. What do? You set structures in place that would enforce discipline. So for late coming, now in order to adhere to principles or the rule of law of the organization of coming in by 9 or on or before 9 a.m., what do? You have a logbook, and now that logbook will have the details of when somebody comes in and when they leave the organization, right? So in situations whereby you want to now promote a staff, you want to bring about staff benefits, do you understand? Or just reward a staff, you can now use that to determine who deserved the staff of the week or staff of the month, right? Or staff of the year, depending. So that's a modern form of instilling discipline in an organization. Okay. So looking at the positive and negative discipline in real life, if we're going to look at the negative discipline, which instills fear, an example would be your boss shouting and threatening to cut your salary. But is it okay? It's not okay to do such a thing when you know you're dealing with adults, you're not dealing with children. Why? Because it's going to bring about fear, it's going to bring about resentment, it's going to bring about what's the word? Even lack of respect for you as they are doing, because there are some staff that will fight it. This kind, just because I'm working under you doesn't mean that I'm your mate. Or just because I'm working under you doesn't mean I'm even older than you. Do you know how old I am? Do you know that I'm your husband in my house? Do you know that I'm somebody's wife? Do you get? So such kind of things would not bring about rule of law. It won't bring about cooperation. It won't bring about productivity. So that is a negative form of discipline. Okay, and it should be avoided by all means. As the HR manager, as head of a department, you should try as much as possible to avoid it. But for positive discipline, it is respect-based, okay? So in as much as you want to respect your employees as the manager, what do? Explain expectations and support staff, okay? You explain expectations and support staff. For instance, we expect that staff should resume on or before 9. Why is that? So that work can begin, at least. Do you understand? Everybody is in at the time they are supposed to be in. Projects are adhered to, meetings are attended. Do you understand? Work culture and the environment is suitable for everyone to coexist in. Okay, so when you explain expectations, you tell them that once you come in before 9, you have like 1 hour to settle down. Between 9 to 10, meetings will start with stakeholders and all of that. Okay, there's expectation. And for anybody who is working and they know that, okay, they are here to work, what are they going to do? They are going to work in line with those expectations. So there's going to be commitment, there's going to be loyalty. Okay. So this approach of self-discipline asserts cooperative efforts of employees to abide by the rules of the organization. So thus, a positive aspect of discipline will play much greater role in safeguarding industrial peace and prosperity for increasing productivity within an organization. So as a HR manager, when you want to instill discipline in your team members, which one would you choose? Is it the negative aspects or the positive aspects? I want to know from you. Why would you do that?
Because I feel like it's more appropriate. You're dealing with human beings.
Fantastic.
So you have to just carry everybody along, because some people are very difficult to deal with. So
They are actually. So characteristics of discipline. Now, the main characteristics of discipline can be summed up as follows. To guarantee successful fulfillment of organizational goals, it motivates workers to abide by the instructions issued by the management or their superiors. It is also it is a negative approach in the sense that it discourages employees in undertaking some activities. And on violation or disobedience of organizational rules, it imposes fine or reprimand, therefore. So it is also a punitive or big stake approach. Okay, so these are the characteristics of discipline. It instills fear in staff to know that, okay, there are goals that needs to be achieved, and so when they fall prey of any disciplinary measure, they know that there are stakes that are in place that would ensure that they are what? Sanctioned, they are remanded, they take responsibility of. Okay, so aims and objectives of discipline. Now, our aims and the objective of discipline are as follows. For the achievement of organizational goals, it tries to earn the willing approval of employees, to introduce the component of uniformity and assurance despite the numerous differences in informal behavior patterns in the organization. It's also for improving the quality of production by enhancing the morale and working efficiency of the employees. It's also to generate respect for human relations in the organization, and it's also to confer and seek direction in the organization, right? So discipline is important because it improves productivity, reduces conflict, and creates a healthy work environment. Are we clear on that? So you can just
Yes,
say
ma'am.
that discipline works as a cornerstone for the smooth functioning of an enterprise. And any enterprise that lacks the presence of discipline will create about a great amount of commotion and confusion, which will bring about decreasing its productivity. And for any enterprise, however big or small, manpower is the most pivotal resource, and thereby all effort should be made to discipline them. Because like I said, human beings can be very unruly at times, and situations whereby they are not properly managed, they can go astray. There were I had instances with some staffs where you know, I try as much as possible to have relationship with my staff, right? So in as much as I'm the HR admin, I also try to also have a relationship with them so that they don't feel like, okay, you are God up there, oh, and up here we were just looking at you, because it will help you to now have a mutual understanding of what your staffs are going through, right? So I had an instance where one of my staff told me that in as much as they know that they can be unruly, but some of the times that I just, stand my ground helps them to stand on their feet, helps them to be on their toes, helps them to function better. Okay, so as much as you say, okay, you want to try to have relationships with your staff, also ensure that, just like the Bible will say, spare the rod and spoil the child. So it's also the same thing in a work environment. As the HR admin, you are the superior, you're the superintended, and what they call it in military, right? So you're the one in charge of them. When you spare the rod, you will spoil them. So you do that once in a while to instill fear, to instill cooperation, to ensure that productivity is maintained, right? They adhere to the rule of law, to the objectives of the organization, and they understand their place, they understand their work culture. All right, so that's the importance of discipline. So discipline occurs when employees fail to follow rules. Just like I said, when we talked about staffs not coming in as at the time they needed to, and then we had to bring about a logbook. So when employees fail to follow rules, what do? You look for processes that would help you ensure that, okay, if these rules not to be followed, if they are not followed, you guys know the repercussions of it. So this can be caused by poor leadership, unfair treatment, or poor communication. But any workplace that has proper communication will bring about what? Increased productivity. Okay? So let's look at factors responsible for discipline. Wage differences, wrong work assignments, payment of very low wages, ineffective leadership, victimization by management, poor communication, defective grievance procedure, unfair leadership practices. These are all factors resulting in discipline. Okay, so This is just saying that discipline occurs when employees fail to follow the rules. And when they fail to follow the rules, it will now cause or bring about what? Poor leadership, unfair treatment, poor communication, defective grievance procedure, unfair labor practices. All these things, right, are the things that now bring about what? Discipline. Okay? I don't know if that's understood. So, as an organization, how do you cope with discipline? Management can adopt various strategies, right, to ensure that discipline is in line with the organization policies, such as counseling and education, grievance handling training, proper induction and program, job enrichments. These are ways that you manage discipline. Counseling and education. That's a way of what? Training your staff on workplace policy. So when they are aware of these rules, what's going to happen? There won't be any need for any disciplinary action. Would they? No. And in situations whereby there's a grievance, between staffs and management, or between colleagues in an organization, what do you do as a HR manager? You handle it, right? That's how you cope with discipline. Proper induction and program. This is during the onboarding. You educate the staff on your policies in place for disciplinary actions. So they are already aware of it. So in a situation whereby they fall prey of any disciplinary action, they are already aware and they know that, okay, when such a thing comes in place, this is what's going to happen. They are going to be, given, let's say 2-week suspension or 1 month suspension without pay when you commit. So in order for you not to miss the 1 month salary, what do? You try to be adherent to the rules of the organization, which brings us to misconduct, right? So misconduct is an action or type of behavior that can be defined as prejudicial to the interest of the employer and other employees. So misconduct refers to unacceptable behavior. It can be minor, it can be major, or severe, depending on the impact. Can you hear me? Can we all hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so who can give me an example of misconduct? Who can give me an example of misconduct in an organization? As a staff, what kind of action would you do that would be taken as misconduct?
Fighting at work.
Sorry, come
Sleeping
again.
during work hours.
Okay, yes.
Fighting or conflict at work.
Okay, great. We also have lateness. We also have absenteeism. When you just decide, I don't want to come to work today, without prior communication. Why are you absent? Management comes, or your reporting officer comes in, and they're looking for where is Augustina? Augustina is nowhere to be found. Huh? Or where is Favor? Favor is not in the office. Why is Favor not in the office? HR is not aware. Definitely there's going to be a disciplinary action for that. Okay? Then major. What do you think is a major misconduct? Give me an example of a major misconduct. We have fraud. Yeah,
We have
I can hear
lying.
you.
Lying.
Sorry. Okay. Lying. Well, let's say that's minor. Major, something that is serious, something that is outrageous, that the human mind wouldn't want to even think of.
Okay.
Theft.
And
It be theft.
Destroying the company's property, stealing from the company, and that's all.
Fantastic. We also have fraud. Maybe you're using the organization's name to dupe people. That is a major misconduct. We have theft. Maybe stealing the organization's belongings. Maybe as a cleaner, you steal toiletries, you steal cleaning agents. You get, these are major. Okay, let me give you this example. I think my husband was gisting me of their drivers in his organization, of how they employed a new admin staff, right? And now usually when the vehicles there's no fuel in the vehicles, normally the admin staff would go with them to go and fuel all the cars in the company, right? So these guys thought that they were smart. What did they do? They thought that, okay, as a new guy now, they can just use him to make money. What did they tell him? They're like, okay, usually when they go to go and buy fuel, the fuel to fuel the cars will cost about, let's say, 50 to 60,000, right, to fuel each car. So they could just tell the fuel attendant to put maybe about 40 or 45,000, and then they will keep 10 or 15K in their pocket and they will share it. So imagine you fuel a vehicle each week. You, as an organization or as an admin person, you are giving about 50 to 60K to go and fuel the vehicle. Now, they take out 10 to 15,000 from each vehicle. That's about 30K. Let's say 15K. That's about 30K. If it is on a daily basis, you go to fuel car. That's on a daily basis. In 5 days, how much have you made? So they are enriching themselves by defrauding the organization. Do you think that's a major or a minor misconduct?
Major misconduct.
It's a major.
A very major misconduct. Okay. So what did this admin person do? Luckily enough, he's not a greedy person. He came and reported it to the accountant. And on hearing that, what happened? It cost them their job. Okay? Because you are being paid salary. You have what is it called? A canteen that gives you food during working hours. So what else do you want? Why not just adhere to your job duties? Okay? But human beings as they are, would always want to be greedy, and their greed cost them their job. All right. So now they would either be out there jobless or looking for another job, all because of misconduct. And that was a major misconduct that cannot even be forgiven in the first place. Okay. So we also have serious misconduct, which is violence or drug abuse. And this can also lead to dismissal. Because if, as a staff, you are taking drugs, you're either going to bring about negative influence among colleagues, or they're going to think that the organization is not serious for harboring drug addicts. So it's either you won't be able to work with partners, you won't be able to work with investors. There's just, the work culture is just not going to be favorable to you. So at the end of the day, you might be dismissed, right? Which is a serious deal. Drug addicts is a very, very serious deal for people who are serious-minded, for organizations that know what they want to achieve. So it could lead to a dismissal, right? So now, I want to ask you, do you think all offenses should have the same punishment?
No.
No,
So we have like the minor offense. For minor offenses, you could handle it with warning. For major offenses, you could handle it with what? Suspension. For serious offenses, you could dismiss them, right? Like the major offense we just talked about, right? Or punishment depending on what the category of the offense is. So it's not all the time that as a HR manager, when someone commits, the first thing you're doing is writing a sack letter for them. I had an instance of, I don't know if I've given you this story in the last 2 weeks, of a staff who was sick, and he just sent me a message, hello ma'am, I'm having and my asthma attack, so I need to go and get my inhaler. I was like, okay. So he left the office, that was like around, let's say 10 11 a.m. and did not come back till about 3. The CEO realized that he was looking for him, he was not there. And then I told him, oh, this guy has gone to go and get his inhaler. He was not feeling too good, and somehow I was calling his number, the number wasn't going through. So as far as my manager was concerned, this is a major issue to him. How can you be away from the office? They're looking for you, you're nowhere to be found. So he's like, in fact, he's coming, just writing me a sack letter. So now, as the HR admin, what did I do? I say, sir, this is unlike so person to behave like this. How about we wait for them to come back and then we find out what happened? And just like I thought, while he went, they had to go and put him on drip. I don't know if people have experienced how asthma is. So they had to put him on drip, and because of the drip, he slept off. And while we're trying to call, his number was not going through. So that was why he was unable to pick our calls. So imagine if we had not investigated the matter, but just decided to just go ahead to just give him a sack letter. Giving a sack letter is a major form of punishment, all right? But the offense was not major, simply because we tried to understand the situation of that was happening at the time, right? So all that happened was a warning. Next time, try to communicate properly, which was what was communicated across to the staff, and he understood, right? So the next day, he was supposed to go back for the next drip, but what did he do? He came to the office first, and the drip was supposed to be in the morning. So he came to the office first and came to say, he's going to go and take a drip. So in case people are calling me at the end of the day, you don't get me. And what happened? The management even decided to pay for his medical bills. Okay, so you see what communication can do? Paid for his hospital bills, even gave him the day off, even assigned a driver to take him to the hospital. Okay, so as the HR manager, you will determine the kind of offense and then the kind of punishments that should be prescribed to such offenses. Is that okay? Do we now understand discipline and misconduct?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Any question?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so I'll give this scenario and then ask the question. So in a case where an employee came to an organization and is in date with the colleagues, maybe from what he said, he doesn't have money, just came into the state, so he's trying to settle, that the job had to bring him to the state, and he's trying to settle. So he got loan from, let's say, more than half of the staff in the organization, that he's going to pay maybe after the month. Now the month passed, he just selected some few people to pay and did not pay the rest. Now these people reported to the HR, oh, this is what is happening, that they would want that when they are paying them the salary, when they're paying him the salary, they should deduct the money and pay him. Is that, can HR do that? Or it needs the person's consent before you could do that? Then another question is, in a situation where someone came to work late and the HR called him, what happened, and he lied that it was not late, although there were witnesses that he came to work late. So he lied that it was not late, because normally this time book, a lot of people lie on it. They will come 7:30 and then write, they will come 8 o'clock and then write 7:30, come 9 and write 8. So he lied that he did not come that time. And then this habit repeated like 3 times. HR warned, and he now said, okay, he's not coming to work that day because because they talked to him in a way he felt they shouldn't have addressed him. He said he wasn't coming to work that day, and then HR threatened that if he should stay back, he shouldn't come to work again, that he'll be fired. And then
Yeah.
he left.
Okay.
Came back the next day and apologized that he was out of character and the race, and the company said unfortunately they cannot take him back. Now this is the same person that is owing the company, owing some of the staff. So before he left, he stole from the company. Now they don't know his whereabouts. They just realized that he stole from the company. They don't know his whereabouts, and they cannot reach him. In a case where you cannot reach an employee to punish the employee, who is going to take the punishment? Is it the guarantor?
Okay.
So that is it.
Okay. Now, fantastic. So for your first question, talking about taking money from your colleagues to sort out your personal living expenses. First of all, it is not your responsibility to take care of any staff's financial problems. Okay? In as much as people try to develop relationships, it is your own personal decision to decide, should I remove from my hard-earned money to give to you or not, right? For instances whereby that has been done, okay, you just feel like you want to be a well-meaningful Nigerian, you want to be a good Samaritan and help somebody out, and then the person pays back your good deed by not paying you back, right? And then such an issue is taken to management. Now, what management can do is decide that, bring the two of you in. Are you going to pay so person? If person says yes, now we watch and see if the payment is made. If it's not, what management can do is deduct that money from your salary and begin to pay it off. Right? Now that can be done.
Okay, ma'am.
Proper, but such misconduct will now be part of your file. Okay? We talked about filing and staff management. So now it will now be part of your file that such misconduct is part of your person or personality. Okay? So if you don't want that to happen, you try to solve it amongst yourselves. And if you're not able to, you bring it to management. Management will deduct it from your salary in order to pay off those that you owe. Is that okay?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Then for your second question, coming late to work, first of all, is a misconduct that shouldn't even happen. If you're coming late, you know that your resumption time is 9 a.m. or 8 a.m. or 10 a.m. depending on the organization, and you know you can't come in as at the time that you're supposed to resume. What do? You pass a message across. And when that is not done, and management decides to reach out to you and finds out that you intentionally decided to be late or did not care about the consequences of being late. Remember when I spoke earlier, I said in order to give any punishment, there has to be 3 strikes, right? You first of all give the first strike, which is documented and put in your file. You came late, refused to reach out to management. That's why sometimes if it is a proper organization, when a staff comes late, their body is shaking. They will rush to go and meet HR and begin to apologize. Oh, I'm very sorry. Oh, this is what happened. My car broke down on the way. Oh no, I had to take my wife to the hospital. Oh, my children's school, they had to call me to go and do this. You know, they go to explain because they know the repercussions of such an act or such a misconduct. But in a situation whereby, as a staff, you see that the staff is not remorseful, they're not even ready to own up to their mistakes. What happened? You give them their first strike. And when the staff decides to do it again or decides to lie, you give them their second strike. By the third strike, they already know that this is a done deal. There is no going back for them. Anything else after this, we're just going to, get rid of them. We don't want such bad energy in the organization. So after their third strike, as the HR manager, you are liable to sack that person. Okay, whether the person is lying or the person is telling the truth or not, so long as he has committed and it is a major misconduct or it is a minor misconduct or a serious misconduct, depending on the crime, there are disciplinary actions. There are some crimes that, you know, the best thing to do is just to suspend that person. Like the driver that I just gave you an example of. All right. But issue of someone lying or coming late, you could give them grace, like three grace. Okay. Give them the first, give them the second. At the third time, that's it. We'll let you go. And if peradventure they feel they want to even take it to court, that's if they have the energy and time to do that. You have it documented. All right. Okay. So you now have the organization's best interest at hand, and such documents would now help you to win that court case. Is that all right? I don't know if that has answered your question. Hello? Has that been able to answer your question? Is Augustina right that asked the question?
No, ma, it's a normal not.
A norm? Okay. Has your question been answered?
Yes, ma.
All right. Fantastic. So as a HR manager, you have to try and ensure that discipline is fair and is consistent. We have the hot stove example. You are warned, okay, and the effect is immediate and it applies to everyone equally. Okay, so discipline should be like touching fire. You are warned, it burns you immediately, which is same results for every time. No favoritism, no bias, regardless of the individual, regardless of their position in the organization, right? If two staffs come late, both must face the same consequences. All right?
Yes, ma.
Okay, so fantastic. As we try to close, I can see that we're already beyond our time. So, let's get our. We looked at categories of misconduct. Okay. We just looked at the hot stove rule, which is according to McGregor, right? Should have your warning, get immediate effect. There should be consistency. So every time you touch a red hot stove, you get the same results. Anyone that touches the hot stove will get the same results, right? That's why we said regardless of position, regardless of individual. Is that right? So procedure for disciplinary action. Ascertain the statement of the problem. Search for underlying factors. This would relate to the example of the staff that I told you had asthma, and management wanted to, give him a sack letter. What we had to do was ascertain the situation. We had to make our findings to find out what happened, and then brought about a conclusion for a warning, right? So let's look at collective bargaining. This is a method of determining terms and conditions of employment and regulating the employment relationship, right? It utilizes the process of negotiation between representatives of management and employees intended to result in an agreement which may be applied across a group of employees, right? So negotiation is the key process of collaborative bargaining. Therefore, collective bargaining is the process of negotiating wages and other conditions of employment by an organization of employee. So the result of collective bargaining procedure is called the collective bargaining agreement. Are you with me? You me? Do you understand what collective bargaining is?
Not really, ma'am.
Okay, so collective bargaining is a process where employees usually, through unions, negotiate with employers on working conditions such as their salary and benefits. You know, you discussed that where we talked about a staff, you know, coming to ask for a review and asking that their salaries be reviewed and all of that, right? So this is how you bargain. This is where we talk about how you bargain for benefits, for salary increments, right?
Okay, ma'am.
So every day in life you negotiate, even without knowing. For example, buying in the market, asking for your salary, discussing deadlines. Negotiation is just simply reaching an agreement. Okay? While collective bargaining is a negotiation done by group. When you bargain, it is individual. While collective is negotiation done by group. And this usually is done through workers' union. There are, for government organizations, that you know their staffs are much, right? So you say you want to go individually to go and bargain for salary or work terms and conditions, you have almost about 100 or 200 staffs coming to meet the administrative team. So what do? They have workers' union that bargains on their behalf. That is what a collective bargaining is known for. Okay? Let's use an example, university. For the university, do you know the union that is involved in negotiating for university institutions?
That's the SUG.
We have ASU. Right, that's for government. That's with government. Okay, then SUG is for students.
That's SUG.
That's for students, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, then we have ASU, which is negotiating with government. Okay, so these are collective bargaining unions. So now there's a process for negotiation. Future, let's look at it. Right. There's a process for negotiation. We have preparation, know your goal, discussion, talk about it calmly. We have proposal, suggest your options, and then bargain, you adjust. Do you remember when I gave you the example of the staff who asked for a salary review of 500,000 from 200,000, and we said we can't pay him 500,000 because of the program manager who was not earning up to that, right? Now, it is in the process of bargaining that you will come to an agreement and adjust your expectations, okay? And then come to a final agreement, a final decision. These are the processes of a negotiation process. I don't know if you understand. Are you with me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So now let's make it practical, because HR is not you, right? It is real life. So your boss says this report must be ready Monday morning, and this is already Friday, 4:30 p.m. But you guys already planned a trip. So how can you negotiate the delivery of such work by negotiating? What do you say? Negotiate like real professionals. It's Friday, 4:30 p.m., and your boss says, this report must be ready Monday morning, but you already planned a trip. How do you negotiate for this?
Okay, for me, well, let me try. I would say, sir, in case of a case where I cannot meet up with Monday,
Okay.
can you possibly move up the date to maybe Tuesday, Wednesday, or whenever I can meet up? I just put the time to whenever I can meet up. Let me just say Tuesday. Is it
Okay.
possible that we move it up to Tuesday so I can deliver a good job?
Okay. Now, so the best approach will be to do what? Negotiate like real professionals. No shouting, no walking away, discuss your case, and then wait for feedback. Right? Which is exactly what you've explained.
Okay.
I think is someone saying something?
No, ma.
Okay. So negotiation is the process where two parties discuss and try to reach an agreement that is acceptable to both sides. Right? We have the analytical skills. Understand the problem before talking. We have empathy. Put yourself in the other person's shoes. Example would be a manager thinking deadline matters, or employee thinking personal life matters, which is a typical example that we have here. So now you will say your point clearly without aggression and be willing to adjust, because if you are being rigid, you just lose negotiations. Which will bring us to negotiation process. It starts with preparation, where both sides understand their needs. Then there's discussion, where they set the ground rules, and next is proposing solutions, followed by bargaining, where compromises are made. So finally, both parties will reach an agreement. It's just like a situation whereby you are coming into an organization, and then you want to bargain your salary. Right? For instance, what the organization intends to offer you is, let's say 500,000, but you feel you're going to bring in a lot more into the organization. So how about increase the offer to about 800 to 1 million. Now, your bargaining skills will be the one that will determine whether that offer will be agreed upon or not. All right? So when the organization understands that they need you, what will happen? There will be a discussion, and then there will be ground rules, right? Then solutions will be offered, and then both parties will reach an agreement. So the importance of negotiation is it maintains peace, it ensures fairness, and improves relationships between employees and management. All right? Who can tell me what are the skills needed for negotiation? What do you think are the skills needed for negotiation?
You need to have good communication skills.
Fantastic. Who else?
I think patience also.
Okay, great. Who else?
Empathy.
Fantastic. So to be a good negotiator, you need good skills. Sorry, you said something? Okay. Empathy, analytical skill, thinking, and flexibility. Because as a negotiator, you cannot be rigid and stand your ground. It is my way or no way. It is my way or the highway. you can't be a good negotiator, right? So we've actually gone beyond our time, but I'm glad we're able to cover most of our topics. So in conclusion, right, managing people in an organization goes beyond hiring for you as a HR manager. It involves keeping proper records, paying employees fairly, maintaining discipline, and ensuring that effective communication through negotiation is reached, right? So when these are done properly, the organization becomes more productive and employees become more satisfied, right? So in everything that we've discussed today, it shows that one thing managing people is about is balance, right? Balance between fairness and performance, balance between rules and understanding, balance between company goals and employee needs. So as a HR manager, you can't just be on the side of the organization alone. You also have to, be able to balance it with employee needs as well. So as a HR manager, when you get this balance right, the organization will succeed. Okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Does anybody have any questions before we end the class?
Can the CEO act as the CEO and also the HR manager? Is it possible?
Okay. In as much as we Nigerians, we like to do jack of all trade, master of none, it is not recommended. Okay, because your job as the CEO is to ensure that business is moving on, right? You are attending to stakeholders, you are attending to meetings. You cannot be managing staff at the same time. You're just going to kill yourself. You will grow old before your time. You will be 25 and be looking 30 or 40. All right? So if you want a proper workplace, if you want a functioning organization, you have to assign. That's why these roles are distinct. Their job descriptions are distinct, right? You will see the job description of the CEO is different from that of a HR manager. The HR manager is basically organization and personnel management. Okay, well, as a CEO, business management. All right.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
You're welcome. Does anyone else have any other question?
Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead.
Ma, can the HRO fire an employee?
Of course. That is your job as a HR manager, to hire and fire. Why do you think why do you think stars are scared of the HR more than they are of the CEO of the company, more than the person that owns the organization? That's why as a HR manager, you have to know I don't want to say your what, because if you know your job, if you know the kind of power you hold as the HR manager, people will not just take you for granted. The way they respect the HR manager, I don't think they respect the owner of the company like that, because they know that any small thing, they can be fired. Right? That's why there are procedures as to how staffs are disciplined. Right? Talk about disciplinary measures. In as much as it is in your power to just sack anybody that misbehaves or comes short of their job duties and expectations, you have to ensure that any disciplinary action you are taking is in line with disciplinary measures. Check, are they minor? Are they major? Are they serious? Right? So each fault has its own consequences and ways of measuring disciplinary actions. Okay, so unless a staff has committed more than 3 times, that you can now sack a staff. And a situation whereby you see that the staff has not committed to the point where you have it documented, Then you have a management meeting to decide, okay, this staff is not really performing, right? We are just wasting money paying this person's salary. How do we now see that, okay, then I will get the best out of this person, or this person is, you know, ripped of their job duties and responsibilities? I have an example of a team member who was part of the management team, and all he was doing was sabotaging the efforts of the management team. When they make a decision, he comes and he just, you know, be like very, very unruly. This guy, why would you make decisions when I'm not there? Begin to make his own decisions. At the end of the day, what did they do? They ripped him off his management benefits, told him he was going to be reporting to management, just like every normal staff would do. And what happened? Made the staff to resign on his own without necessarily having to fire him. Do you think that was an effective method of handling the situation? Or would it have been better to just, you know, sack them at once? Because when you sack an employee without proper, what will I put it now? When they feel like they really haven't committed, they could sue you as an organization, right? So you have to avoid that for yourself, for your organization. It is now your job as a HR manager to see how you can handle the situation with utmost intelligence. All right? But it is in your power to hire and fire.
Okay, thank you very much, ma'am.
You're welcome. Does any other person have any question? Okay. So if there are no more questions, I think this is where we call it a day. All right. I hope we all have learned something from our week 1 to 3. Right? You now,
Yes,
when you go there, you get a job as a HR manager. You understand what your job responsibilities is. You know what is expected of you as a HR manager. You know how you're supposed to represent your organization, the middleman. Right? You know the core functions of a human resource manager. You know
yes, ma'am.
you know how to hire people, you know how to discipline them, you know, and all of that. Okay, so I think we'll call it a day. Thank you so much to everyone for your time. I hope we meet again some other time. Right?